Hey everybody, welcome back to another YouTube video. It's been a while, I know, but I just really wanted to speak about this new movie that came out that I am really interested in called The Backrooms. So it was highly anticipated and it was an A24 production, and as soon as I heard that it's going to be A24, I'm like, okay, this is going to be a good movie. Okay, this is gonna be a good movie. Sorry, I'm kind of cringe, but like, yeah. So let me quickly explain why I think this movie is so interesting. So I have always been a big fan of personality theory, especially Carl Jung and his psychology theories or whatever. When I saw this movie, about halfway through I realized, wait, this is literally all about like Carl Jung's theories, in my opinion. And I think that the people who made this movie must have been influenced by him in some way. And I want to try and convince you to believe the same thing as me, because I've not seen anyone talking about it, and it is just so obvious to me when I watch the movie. So just to give a quick little synopsis. Okay, so I couldn't find a very good synopsis online, and I'm kind of lazy, so I don't want to have to write my own, but basically the owner of a furniture store, and his name is Clark, finds a secret doorway that leads him to an endless stretch of rooms where he disappears. His therapist ventures into the unknown to rescue him. Basically, at the start of the film, this guy Clark is having problems like thinking about how he divorced his wife, and he feels a lot of guilt and anger towards it. He seems to be blaming his wife. He is pretty like troubled by it. It's getting in the way of his life, and his therapist basically does this sort of almost puts him into a hypnotic state and talks to him and tries to figure out how he's feeling deep down about his wife or what he could say to her, and he basically blames everything on her. And he seems a bit aggressive, but he seems like a pretty normal guy, like someone that all of the audience could probably relate to. Basically at the start of the movie I was like, he's gonna take on a sort of psychological type like theme. It's going to try and go into the psychology of the Backrooms, because there was a lot of times where it would be like, oh yeah, the Backrooms is like playing on nostalgia and it's like liminal spaces. But the film actually went a lot deeper than that. It really surprised me specifically, and the film was advertised as like a horror, and people were all talking about it like it was going to be really scary. But really, in my opinion, it's more of like a psychological thriller, because there wasn't many horror elements except like maybe like just some tension, and then the end when it was like a chase like horror scene. But in my opinion, it was more of a psychological thriller, or just a psychological film. The film has a lot to say though, and that's what really surprised me, because usually when people adapt like things from the internet or whatever into a film, they don't really go much further, but this film went further, you know what I mean? I'm here to argue that the Backrooms represents the subconscious mind, or collective unconscious. The reason that other people can enter the Backrooms, as you'll see later in the film, like basically anyone can get in, is because it is the collective unconscious, which is like a shared mind space. So the collective unconscious is one of Jung's theories that we all have the same instincts or archetypes, and we all very deep down have the same inner like subconscious desires and thoughts, subconscious desires. And basically this became really obvious to me after watching the movie for a little bit, because first of all, the film emphasizes loops a lot, and the liminal space, which is like repeating. Liminal space is sort of meant to play on nostalgia, because it takes things from your memory. It plays on things from your memory that are kind of distorted. So places that you find familiar, but the place isn't quite right because it doesn't feel like a real place. But the therapy session at the start of the film was very important and actually had some parallelism with the end of the film. As soon as Clark got into the back rooms, there was a lot of furniture from the furniture store he worked at, because he's like a manager of the furniture store or whatever. And a lot of the rooms are kind of very artistically like made to show a sort of weird perspective, like optical illusions that make it look like it's going a certain way, but it's not really. And that's really interesting because it plays on like that the back rooms are based off of our own perception, because it's like an optical illusion. Basically, straight up, the fact that the furniture from his store is in the back rooms shows that it is something to do with his own subconscious mind. And as Clark explores more of the back rooms, the more distorted they get, and the more loops he sort of goes through. It kind of shows how the subconscious mind will take items that it can remember and sort of warp them into this sort of mysterious, like, I don't know, like into this sort of like way that the mind, like the subconscious mind, can easily use. And it's a lot like a dream, you know. You think of when you're dreaming, nothing really, if you focus on anything, it's like weird, but like from an outside perspective, it's like normal, you know what I mean? Because the subconscious mind can't like make everything that detailed. It just needs to be realistic enough to believe. And the whole idea of loops in the back room is actually very much because of like psychological loops that Clark and especially the psychologist Mary face. So for example, Clark has this like cycle of like blaming his wife, or like just going through a certain thought process that we see a lot, and then Mary has this sort of like PTSD sort of thing that is very clear at the end of the film, but it's obviously a loop because it's looping in their head, which is also why the backrooms are like looping the same sort of things, which is very interesting. So basically the characters are walking in circles throughout the whole film, and then basically the monster, or the I don't even know, the creature that is basically the villain, the character that's chasing the main characters and killing people in the backrooms, is a distorted version of Clark. And a few scenes in the film, he's doing this advertisement in this like weird pirate costume, and this monster is also wearing that pirate costume. And the face is so creepy, it's like bulging eyes and stuff. This is like full on what really made me think, okay, this is like crazy, like Carl Jung stuff. Because he is both representing an archetype, the monster, but also a reflection of Clark and what he thinks about himself. So it's sort of like a humiliating costume that you have to wear for an ad, and how the backrooms sort of see him, like how his subconscious mind sees himself. His monster is like the shadow, or like the repressed side of himself. But especially during the scene where he was basically comforting the monster, like saying like it's not your fault or whatever, like basically feeding these delusions, it was really clear to me, okay, he's feeding his shadow. The monster is actually his shadow, which is like a twisted version of himself. And then at the start of the film is his persona, which is the man of the house, you know, the one who goes and gets the bread. Like, he sees himself as powerful and strong and doing all this hard work, but really his shadow is just sort of immature and really violent and angry. So to me, this really clearly is referencing Carl Jung's archetypes and like personality theories and all of that, and I've read a lot of Carl Jung, so I strongly and firmly believe that is sort of what the film is about. And I could go on about this for like ages, but I won't. But even the fact that a psychologist was brought into the film, like as a character, shows like that it is about, the film is trying to talk about psychology. And with her trauma as well, it's obviously repressed unconscious trauma, and there's just so much more to go on about in the film, but I just really appreciate it. I don't think it's going to win like an Oscar or anything, because a lot of people do not like the film at all. A lot of people are lying, saying like BS, like the film is so bad, but it is not, and I recommend you watch it. Just focus, because like I didn't focus going into it because I didn't think it would be like that amazing of a film, but it is. So seriously, just go into it with an open mind. And I can't decide whether I like Obsession or The Backrooms more. I think I like The Backrooms more because it's way more creative, but Obsession was probably a bit better carried out, because this Backrooms film, it's unfinished. So yeah, that's the main thing. The film is unfinished. It kind of leaves you on a cliffhanger, and if you don't understand like the symbolism in the film, it is like sort of just nonsense, I guess. So yeah, that's all I have to say about the film for now, I think. But thank you guys for watching, and if you want, go to my TikTok where I live stream a bunch, and my Instagram. So yeah, thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and bye!